So there's another section called Wisdom, Knowledge, and Belief. And this is very important for my introductory philosophy students. Okay, wisdom he classifies as a fundamental understanding of reality as it relates to living a good life, reasonable and practical, focusing on the true circumstances and character of each individual, good judgment about complex situations involving reflection, insight, and the plausible conception of the human condition. Unquote. So I often tend to think of wisdom as something intuitive, and something that is sort of reflected on from lived experience. And if you read my blog about what is philosophy, which I'm putting on Canvas, or I have put on Canvas, then you will see some other ways that are helpful to think about wisdom. Another way that he talks about knowledge is some form of true belief, which is different than wisdom, but another term he introduced. This gets controversial too. I'm not going to go into this in an introductory class, but if you want to read more about it, it's in the blog. Then there's another term that he introduces called theoretical knowledge, the accurate compilation and assessment of factual and systematic relationships. And then there is practical knowledge, the skills needed to do things like play the piano, use a bandsaw, remove a tumor, or bake a cake. So this is, if you recall earlier, I believe I said something about this interplay between theoretical and practical, and this is constantly taking place within philosophy. Then he makes a distinction between two other terms called belief and mere belief. Belief he describes as, quote, conviction or trust that a claim is true, colon, an individual's subjective mental state, semicolon, distinct from knowledge. And then another definition that he provides, because sometimes he provides them in the text and then on the side, is, or the subjective mental acceptance that a claim is true. Next, he has mere belief, which is a distinction between that, which he states is, quote, a conviction that something is true for which the only evidence is the sincerity of the believer, unquote. I'm not going to talk about these two in too much depth because you do have an assignment on this, but I did want to read them for you. So, given all this, what can be asserted by all this is that for the philosopher, or for the philosophy student, ignorance is not an option, and it certainly cannot be bliss, especially in this course. So this is an excellent quote that I want to read by Soccio. It says, in the realm of philosophy, we would be wise to take advantage of those thinkers and ideas that have stood the test of time and significance. Of course, we do not want to accept the arguments of philosophers just because they are considered great or important, even though we need to think for ourselves. Impulsively or defensively rejecting important philosophical arguments before we have really thought about them is foolish and arrogant. It is foolish because we cannot really know what there is in a position if we do not give it a fair hearing. It is arrogant because summarily rejecting or mocking ideas that have influenced careful thinkers from the past and present implies that without any background knowledge, we know more than the philosophers, the scientists, and the theologians who have devoted years of study to these issues. So, essentially, as philosophers or as philosophy students of philosophy, we can shut ourselves off from the truth, from data, from knowledge. And we do this by willed ignorance, which is another term that Soccio gives. Willed ignorance is, quote, an attitude of indifference to the possibility of error or enlightenment that holds on to beliefs regardless of the facts, unquote. So essentially, what willed ignorance is, it's dogmatic acceptance of what you already know and the refusal to grow as a human being. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. This is your first one. It's a very important chapter, even though it is very short. But the content is quality and loaded for the rest of the course. Thank you so much. Look forward to getting to know you more in class. Take care.